There we go. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have a quorum present. Director Palmer, Director Schott, Director Bland, myself, Director Ward, Director Lewis, and Director Minley. If everyone will please rise and join me in pledging allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Director Ward, if you would lead us in a short prayer.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for blessing us with another day, Lord, and another year. We ask that as we proceed in this meeting, Lord, that your guiding light be upon us, Lord. We thank you for those that are represented here, Lord, that are passionate, Lord, about what they are passionate about, Lord. Lord, we ask that you just guide us, Lord, and give us safe travels home. We thank you for all that you do. In your name I pray. Amen.
So say we all. All right, public comments. We have a lot of people who have signed up. Anyone who wishes to, well, then you need to step forward, sir.
There isn't enough space.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to have to step forward. We have a lot of folks who have signed up for public comment. Public comment is going to be limited to 3 minutes for each person. If anyone else wishes to make a public comment on any agenda item, now's the time to sign up so they can send the paper up here when we get you in the deal. So we're opening up public quorum. First person, Christy Palmer.
Hi, my name is Christy Palmer. My husband, David Palmer, is a member of the board of directors. I've been a resident of Kinney County for 25 years, and I'm reading a letter from the Watershed Association, which is an organization that works in the Hill Country, and their work in management zones is exemplary for the state of Texas. They work with David Baker, and this letter is from Zane Porterfield, the Policy and Outreach Coordinator for the Watershed Association. Dear members of the board, the Watershed Association writes to express our significant concern regarding the draft recommendation to declare the Edwards Trinity Plateau Aquifer in Kinney County as non-relevant for joint planning in Groundwater Management Area 7. While we are based in Hays County, we understand that groundwater does not follow political boundaries. The Edwards Aquifer connects us all, from Kinney County to Del Rio to Central Texas Springs and the surrounding contributing zone. We believe that remaining an active participant in regional joint planning is not only a benefit to Kinney County, but is essential for the long-term protection of Los Moras Springs, San Felipe Springs, and the broader aquifer system. How does joint planning benefit the Kinney County Groundwater Conservation District? Shared science and resources. By participating in Groundwater Management Area 7 planning, Kinney County gains access to regional data, modeling, and expertise. This strengthens your district's ability to make informed, defensible decisions. In our region, it allows us to calibrate and share models that factor in spring flows and areas of unique drawdown more accurately. Political and legal leverage. Inclusion in regional planning ensures Kinney County has a voice in decisions that affect your water resources, especially as external pressures from water supply increase statewide. As we are seeing in East Texas, local control of groundwater is foundational to the system in Texas. Better management. Joint planning allows for coordinated management with neighboring districts, helping to prevent cross-boundary impacts and conflicts. Joint planning groups provide access to specialized studies, state agency support, and peer learning that individual districts cannot replicate alone. By declaring your aquifer non-relevant, your district may inadvertently step away from stronger data collection efforts and shared knowledge resources, tools that are essential for adaptive management in a changing climate. How does joint planning benefit the springs? It provides a holistic understanding of flow systems. Los Moras and San Felipe
Ms.
Springs
Palmer,
are part of the connected
reached your
groundwater
3 minutes, and we do have a copy of that in our folder.
Okay. Are you telling me to stop?
Yes, ma'am. We need to move on to the next person. We're going to be here all night. Lisa Marie.
Hi.
Okay. Go to the kids.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a landowner in Kinney County. And I'd like to state that the memo by Vince Claus sends a false scientific message that pumping is not relevant to the spring flow of Los Moras Springs and therefore shouldn't be regulated by a DFC, and that the district should declare that the Edwards Trinity Aquifer irrelevant in order to achieve that goal. The message is in contradiction to 3 most recent hydrologists who have studied Kinney County prior to Vince Claus. These hydrologists have agreed that pumping does impact the spring flow of Los Moras Springs. These hydrologists are Bill Hutchinson, Ron Green, and Robert Mace. Bill Hutchinson, the former Kinney County hydrologist and a longtime GMA 7 hydrologist, said in his June 2024 letter that it is reasonable to conclude that groundwater pumping has contributed to the lower than expected spring flow and the non-achievement of the GMA 7 DFC. Prior to that, Hutchinson also stated in a September 2023 presentation that if pumping had been reduced by roughly half in 2022, Los Moras Springs would have had increased flow. Ron Green, a hydrologist with the Southwest Research Institute, in his January 2012 letter to the Sutton County Underground Water Conservation District said, drying of Los Moras Springs can be correlated with groundwater usage. The springs have less chance of drying up when total groundwater usage remains consistently below 5,000 to 8,000 acre-feet per year. The springs can be expected to stop flowing about every 3rd year if groundwater usage remains consistently in the 12,000 to 16,000 acre-feet per year range. Lastly, Robert Mace, former Texas Water Development Board hydrologist and current Chief Water Policy Officer of the Meadow Center for Water and the Environment at Texas State University, says in his January 2nd, 2026 post, in direct response to Vince Claus's proposal to declare the aquifer irrelevant in Kinney County, that the proposal is extreme and likely incorrect from a scientific and policy perspective. So, in summary, all 3 of these hydrologists disagree with Vince Claus's assertion that pumping is irrelevant to spring flow.
Will Conley.
Hello, my name is Will Conley. I'm a former reservoir engineer where I studied water, oil, and gas flows in underground reservoirs. And I'm also a current landowner here in Kinney County. I've been active in monitoring the water situation here in Kinney County for the past 3.5 years. I reviewed the technical memo from the new hydrologist, Vince Claus, hired by the district, and have some comments. The primary issue with Vince's analysis is that it uses inaccurate and in some cases changed pumping data provided by the Kinney County Groundwater District that results in pumping data not being usable for finding correlations between pumping and spring flow. After longtime hydrologist Bill Hutchinson left the Kinney County GCD in 2025, the district took the opportunity to change the pumping numbers they were reporting. They did this in such a way as to reduce the amount of pumping that took place when Los Moras Springs was failing and increase it in places where Los Moras Springs was flowing, thus making it appear pumping has less impact on the springs. This data was then given to Vince Claus, who appears to have not validated it, and resulted in a poor relationship between pumping and spring flow in his multivariate regression model. Additionally, Vince omits information from his analysis that supports the conclusion that spring flow is impacted by pumping. Nowhere in his report does he address the fact that we've had a well monitoring network in place for over 10 years in this county, with over 30 wells that show 70, 80, and in some cases 90% correlations to areas with large amounts of pumping in Los Moras Springs. Although he identifies that pumping has increased over the last 5 years and spring flow has dramatically decreased, he obscures this information and makes it unclear. Pumping has almost tripled over the last 5 years, and spring flow has been reduced by 80% over that same time period. All the while, rainfall has only decreased by 17% over that same time period. Vince fails to highlight this. He also fails to mention that if the DFC stays in place,
The county will have failed to meet this legal threshold a sixth year in a row. The DFC requires average annual spring flow to be above 23.9 CFS. The last 6 years, spring flow for the year has averaged 12, 7, 6, 3, 6, and 4. Rather than voting to protect spring flow, this board is voting to remove spring flow protections and has already approved 2 increases to pumping limits this year for current and former board members. In summary, this move to take away the DFC, protecting spring flow, is at direct odds with the purpose of this water district. And Vince Claus has been hired not as a scientist, but as an advocate to build the case on behalf of a water board that is serving their own interests as pumpers and pumper contractors, rather than the interests of Kinney County residents. Do we believe that a hired
Mr.
hydrologist
Conley, you've reached your limit. Please wrap it
large
up.
water exporters in the state and who omits critical correlation data from his recommendation to remove spring flow protection is a
Your
credible
time is up,
source of
Mr.
science
Conley.
on this board
Please
or
have a
anyone
seat.
believe that this board made up of
Time is up.
pumper contractors.
Your time.
3 minutes. That's it. Everybody's getting.
To pressure community members.
We're not listening to
Please
And
limit him.
the rule unique to Kinney County that requires a majority of the board seats. Okay.
Just Holly.
Kerr.
Hello, I'm Valverde County Commissioner Kerr, Wardlaw, Precinct 1, which borders Kinney County. I'm representing the Kerr Ranch, which is my mom's family's ranch between Las Moras Road and 693. And we have a well over there that's already dried up. I rode my horse from the ranch to the water summit the other day. It's so close. It's 2.5 miles away, and we're not getting water. We can't run cattle on this property. It's turning into nothing. It's turning into a wasteland. So we need to be able to use our land. And if we're just going to dry up everybody, then it's keeping nobody from pumping water out of Edwards County north of here and drying up the people that are pumping the water here in Kinney County. We want to ranch our ranch again. Thank you.
Charlene Cavender.
Good afternoon or good evening. I'm gonna just be very simple. I don't have a lot of scientific data that a lot of people here have, gathered and done for any reason for both sides. What I can tell you is that Fort Clark Springs will die if we don't have a spring, because we, in all honesty, depend on that water for our livelihood, just like everybody does. Ranchers, for cattle, for growing crops, for whatever. We all need that water. And so I really think for however we do this, everybody, we just need to work together so this doesn't happen. It's just simple. It's just that simple. We love the fort. If the fort spring goes dry and we don't have people visiting us, what's going to happen to Bracketville? Then what's going to happen to the ranchers? What's going to happen to everybody? It's not just ranchers and us. It is all of us. And if we don't work together for that, we're not going to have anything. And this little area is going to die. And we just need to save it, however we decide to do it. That's all I have to say.
Susan Main. It's the last name.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Copies. I can pass these around. One for each of y'all, hopefully. My name is Suzanne Main, and I'm a property owner and resident, full-time resident in Kinney County. And I'm providing comment on agenda item 5. My request is do not accept option 1. Accept option 2 or do nothing and leave the current DFC for Los Moras Springs in place unchanged. So the aquifer model is rewritten to reproduce the actual conditions of the aquifer in Kinney County based on monitor well network data, accurate groundwater pump per well per month data and a re-estimate of available groundwater not using the inflated historical use volume. Please ask your consultant to do the hard work of developing, refining the model using actual monitoring well data gathered in the past years and more granular methodologies to extrapolate the available pumping data to the growing irrigation season in the county and conduct any additional tests necessary to fill in data gap. The hard work should include determination of aquifer behavior, groundwater dynamics, hydrogeographic interpretation, and analysis and application of hydrogeology and engineering principles and practices to revise your new model. I have background points to go through until I run out of 3 minutes. Kinney County Groundwater Conservation District initial intent was to evaluate its groundwater resources and the effects of groundwater withdrawal at wells on its springs and river flows, and to maintain reasonable flows of the 3 largest springs, Los Moras, Mud, and Pinto Springs, under potential future groundwater use conditions. The current desired future condition is to maintain specific average and median spring flows around 23.9 to 24.4 cubic feet per second for Los Moras Spring. Mud and Pinto Spring flows have already diminished to being implemented to ephemeral flows. Los Moras Spring flow was next. Flow was essentially 0 for 85 days in 2022, 111 days in 2023, 118 in 2024, and over 100 in 2025. Per your own consultant's letter reports, the DFC for Los Moras Springs was non-achievement for 2023 and 2024. Despite pumping records being incomplete, documented pumping over the past several years has indicated doubling and perhaps even tripling the annual pumping from 3,000 to 5,000 acre feet per year to 10,000 to 15,000 acre feet per year. The only reasonable cost quality water supply in Kinney County is Edwards Aquifer groundwater. There is no surface water supply. Already in Kinney County, as larger properties have been and are being divided into smaller and smaller plots of dwellings, exempt wells will be closer together and will impact neighboring properties more and more. Loss of Los Moras Spring as a flowing viable entity, providing water to Los Moras Creek through Fort Clark Springs Association property, and continuing into adjacent private properties would result in significantly lower property values. Loss of an amenity which is a foundational component of Fort Clark Springs Association membership and property ownership inside and outside of Fort Clark Springs Association. Bracketville property values would be similarly negatively impacted, as well as the businesses and cottage enterprises throughout the area.
I hate to cut you off, Miss Main, but
Okay.
you've run over your limit. Carl Moody.
Good evening. Thank the board for their consideration and listening to me. I don't have a lot of expertise in water management. I'm a pilot. I'm a member of the property owners group here at Fort Clark Springs. And I only really have 2 questions. One is, what is the motivation of the board to take this action or even to consider it to begin with? The second question is, what is your end goal? Is it the goal of the board to perpetuate, and I don't want to really get into a lot of conflict here. Is it to perpetuate your own self-interest, or is that goal to help the people of Kinney County who voted you into these positions to begin with? Thirdly, if that goal is to perpetuate your own self-interest, you're not doing the job you were elected to do. Take the interest of the people of Kinney County as your utmost goal. We beg you, don't do this. It serves no purpose for anyone in this room other than those, perhaps 2 on the board and 13 other interests, to remove everything that protects this creek. It's important to us. It's important to the people of Kinney County, and it should be important to you. I thank you for your time.
Kelly Shahan.
Good evening. Nice to be here. Thank y'all for having us. And I'd like to start out by saying we're opposed to getting rid of your DFCs. And we're certainly opposed to you declaring a 55,000 acre foot aquifer irrelevant. And so my history is that I was born and raised here. We ranched next door to the Belcher Ranch, which is now owned by Danette. And during that period of time in the early 60s, Albert Ivy was farming that place. He was from Crystal City, and he raised the best onions you've ever eaten. But we had 5 wells go dry that year. In 1 year, we had 5 wells go dry from the pumping that occurred on our fence line. And so in 2000, a little early 2000, we tried to form a water district, which everybody agreed to do that. But when we did, we had to have an election to determine if the people in Kinney County wanted to have a groundwater district to protect the groundwater. 84% of the people in this county voted to do that. And I would say today, there's probably 85% of the people, 90% of the people in this room, 85% of the people in Kinney County would vote for you to protect our groundwater. Okay? So your DFCs, I found a Kinney County Groundwater Conservation District Board Member Handbook. And when it goes to the DFCs, it says, why do DFCs matter? They give a target to guide our water management decisions. By having a goal for groundwater levels and availability, we can better protect our springs, creeks, and wells during dry periods and make sure we don't pump out more water than our aquifer can handle. So that was back when this district was formed. Why does this matter to Kinney County? The district's role in setting and enforcing desired future conditions is all about preventing risk. What are these risks? Your water level dropping. Everybody's having to go out and drill deeper wells. The chance of your aquifer souring, becoming tainted, becoming sulfurized. So, well, let me finish here. The district helps ensure water availability, protects the aquifer structure, and preserves local springs and ecosystems. Meeting DFCs keeps the aquifer from reaching dangerously low levels, preventing both the known risk of compaction, drying springs, and higher costs, as well as unknown risk of long-term or irreversible damage. In short, the aquifer, if it runs dry repeatedly, can lead to lasting changes that reduce water availability. And these were the instructions that came in the Groundwater Conservation District when it was formed. Am I out of time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment.
Please vote for the people of Kinney County and not for yourself. Thank you.
Ron Green.
Good evening. I'm Ron Green. I've been working on the water resources of this area for over the last 30 years or so. We've done a fair bit of work while I was at Southwest Research. I'm now retired. I'm still active. I don't know if you have all the documentation that we generated at Southwest Research. I just want to alert you of this. If you have any questions, during your deliberations, I'm glad to share that with you. We did some early work that was commissioned by the Edwards Aquifer Authority that was a little questioned by the people of Kinney County, but what we showed was that Kinney County is a separate pool from Uvalde, which helps with your independence. I forgot to bring that report. Mr. Zach Davis, I gave him a copy in August of 2006. If we need one, maybe the district has one. From that work, we published 2 books. These have been peer reviewed, locally, nationally, internationally. They're both available. They talk about your water resources and some of the fundamentals germane to your resources. Lastly, one document that was briefly mentioned before, it is a technical brief that I prepared in 2012. It was during the first cycle of joint planning. There was a hearing on questioning the DFCs, and I prepared this. It's available. It's in the public docket, and some of these numbers were mentioned briefly, but what I saw was when I looked at the pumping and the usage from the 30s up to 2010, there were three distinct periods. Up to the mid 60s, pumping was 5,000, 8,000 acre feet per year, used in the best possible numbers provided by the Texas Water Development Board. During that time, which included the drought of record of the 50s, springs did not go dry. From the mid 60s to the mid 80s, pumping increased markedly. The average during that time, once again using Texas Water Development Board numbers, up to 12,000 to 16,000. During that 20-year period, the springs went dry 7 of those years. In the mid 80s, pumping was decreased. And once again, we use Texas Water Development Board numbers. The average was more variable, but 6,000 to 16,000 acre feet per year. And during that 20-year period, the springs went dry 3 times. So this goes up to 2010, the numbers that I had prior to that hearing in 2012. It'd be interesting to see how some of these analysis methodologies would take these data into account. So I'm here if you have any questions on this information during your deliberations, and I'm welcome to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dawn, ready? Dawn? I think it's Reedy? Ready?
On reading.
No, we'll put them down at the bottom of the list. They show up, we'll get to them. Tracy Boer.
I'm just here to say to the board, thank you for all you're doing. I appreciate all the work that's going into finding out the exact hydrology. I know there's a lot of controversy in this room and a lot of differing opinions. I do feel like all the data that's being collected, it's raw data. It's coming straight off the wells. And I want to point out too, I got my master's degree in watershed management. My research site was the Lyle Ranch 30 years ago. Our research was removal of brush to see its effect on the water cycle, to see its effect on water flow, to see its effect on water quality. And what my research found, I inherited research. I did not start it. And I went to school at Texas A&M. It found that removal of the brush increased water flow and springs came back, and also the water quality improved. That's just a brief synopsis. So something else I want to point out is I've noticed a lot of comments of folks making comments about this DFC, so on and so forth. And there's a lot of misinformation. So I highly recommend going on the Texas Water Board site and learning all about it, because it's being manipulated for a political gain, in my opinion. And I feel like if everyone were to educate themselves more about it, you would understand that it's not as controversial as it seems right now. So thank you, Water Board. I appreciate everything you're doing, and I hope everybody has worn a bulletproof vest tonight. So thank y'all. Good luck.
Thank you, except for the last part.
Sorry.
Don't worry, somebody said they had their Kevlar around, they wear it on. Miss Marsh.
Thank you. I oppose option 1, which proposes that the Edwards Trinity Aquifer in Kinney County
be declared non-relevant to state water planning in GMA 7. The core mission of a GCD is to manage and conserve groundwater to achieve a desired future condition that will meet the long-term water needs of the district. The modeled available groundwater, or MAG, is the estimate of water available while still achieving the DFC. You can't miss the bullseye when there is no target to aim at. If there is no DFC, the MAG is not zero. There is no MAG at all. As a result, the Kinney County GCD would effectively have no state oversight or accountability for GMA 7. Per the recent state audit, the Kinney County GCD spent over $820,000 from October 2021 through February 2025 on data collection and hydrogeologic consultant. This is over half of the funds expended by the district during that period and an extraordinary investment for a district our size. I have often been told by district personnel, board members, and consultants that other GCDs are amazed and envious of the monitoring and data that Kinney County has collected. Yet across the state, almost 100 GCDs are currently updating their DFCs based on the best science available to them. The Kinney County GCD has had the same length of time that all other districts have had to prepare for this process, 5 years. Unfortunately, as stated in the audit, taxpayer funds were spent without a contract that guaranteed the delivery of the final report on Dr. Hutchinson's modeling, which is how we arrived at the current impasse with a newly hired hydrogeologic consultant and a limited timetable. To suggest that the solution to this dilemma is to declare the Edwards Trinity and Kinney County non-relevant to state water planning and GMA 7 is a huge disservice to Kinney County citizens, and it is simply not true. The water supply for Fort Clark Springs and the city of Bracketville comes from the Edwards Trinity Aquifer. How can an aquifer be non-relevant if it supplies the water for most of the county's population? And many of the permits issued by the district are for wells in the Edwards Trinity. The waters of Los Moras Springs, along with other area springs, has an impact on salinity levels in the Rio Grande that is critical to water quality downstream. I recently spoke with an irrigation district manager in the valley who expressed concern about this proposal. The Edwards Trinity Aquifer in Kinney County is highly relevant to the citizens who live here. It is also relevant to our fellow Texans downstream. The Kinney County GCD Board has an obligation to propose a DFC supported by the best available data for the next GMA 7 planning cycle. Thank you.
And you were spot on the second about.
Oh, good. I took out one sentence. So
You nailed it. Jeanette Orwig.
Hi,
Hello, Ms. Orwig.
how are y'all? Thank you for serving, all of you. And it is an important job, and I appreciate what you're doing. What I understand, and I think what a lot of the confusion is tonight, is I think I am opposed to the spring being irrelevant too. But I understand that the spring needs to be moved from GMA 7 to GMA 10 because that's where the spring issues from, and that's from the Bennett-Serra report years ago. So it's hard to do a MAG or groundwater modeling if you've got the spring in one aquifer and the pumping that you're trying to monitor in the other aquifer. And we as farmers have had our wells being monitored recently. We have been concerned that we would affect the spring. And so we appreciate that the district has spent money to make sure that our wells, how they impact the spring. But now I think the district would be better served if you started monitoring wells closer to the spring, and particularly one north of us who is issuing water from one side of the aquifer going into our side of the aquifer. If you would monitor wells like that and see where the problem is and what is affecting the spring. Also, the big problem the district has, when I served on the district, you have an exempt well that's impacting the spring. How do you keep the spring flowing if one well that impacts the spring pumps constantly and keeps spring levels low. So I would just encourage y'all to continue doing science to monitor us, to make sure we're not affecting the spring, getting the spring in the right aquifer, and then working together as a community to do whatever it takes to make sure lots more spring flow. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. O'Leary. Sharon Wolf.
Yes, I'm Sharon Wolf. I'm a board member here at the Fort Clark Springs community location of Los Moras Springs and home to 50% of the residents in Brackett County and Kinney County. The Conservation District was created 25 years ago, and I came up with 87% vote, 84, 87, somewhere in there. Creating the groundwater district. And it's the very first DFC created by this board specifically stated that Los Moras spring flow should be protected and maintained at annual average of around 24 CFS. The DFC protecting the springs has been in place since it was created. The people of Kinney County want Los Moras Springs to be protected by the Kinney County Groundwater Conservation District. This water district, controlled by permit interest, is plotting to remove the protections for Los Moras Springs by declaring the aquifer irrelevant. And that has a direct impact. It'll remove the DFC, requiring spring flow to be maintained above 24 CFS. And it also will remove the MAG limit, which sets the upper limit of how much water can be permitted to the pumpers. The board is not serving the community of Kinney County. Its members are serving a handful of permit holders and themselves. Several of these board members are pumping permit holders, and they do a lot of work for the pumpers. The board should be voting to enact pumping limits to prevent Los Moras Springs from going dry the 5th year in a row. Not voting and voting to remove protection for Los Moras Springs to the benefit of 5% of the community is not profiting our county.
Wolf. Gage Brown.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. So I won't be so kind because this is my 4th year coming here. It's been 4 years. 4 years since Los Moras Springs went dry, along with Pinto Springs and unpermitted wells across the county, like Mr. Wardlaw's. Yes, a drought is going to put a strain on our aquifer. A 5-year-old can understand that. You get less rain, you have less water in the aquifer. It's simple. Nobody's denying that. A 5-year-old can also understand that pumping water out of an aquifer also puts a strain on it. If you ever drink water out of a cup, when you suck the water out through the straw, there's going to be less drink left over in the cup. The same basic principle with an aquifer. It's an oversimplification, but it's not rocket science. When you take the water out, there's going to be less left in, and you aren't guaranteed endless refills by Mother Nature. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. That's what those of you who are opposed to keeping our DFC in place don't understand. Water is meant to be shared. Just because you have private property rights doesn't make you more deserving of water than Joe Blow down the street who owns nothing. It should be obvious to everyone by now that this is all a matter of money and special interest. The directors who want to weaken regulations have something to gain from that. And they couldn't give a shit about any of you who don't have permits. As far as they're concerned, you can pick yourself up and find a new place to live when the tap runs dry. Myself and several other community members who are here tonight have been begging the board for 4 years to regulate how much water is withdrawn from this aquifer, specifically through adopting a drought plan. We went so far as to create one for you, based on your own hydrologist science, and it was endorsed by a leading groundwater attorney, and it would have allowed farmers to finish their crops, and you didn't even take it to a vote. In the past 4 years, we have met with community members and regional planning board members and state reps and senators and hydrogeologists and representatives from other groundwater districts in Texas. And everyone tells us at the end of the day, you are the only 7 people who can protect Kinney County's water. But what have you done for the past 4 years? You say you need more data, but I just heard Mr. Claus at the beginning of this meeting say you have more than enough. And you've kicked the can down the road, and you have not taken any meaningful action to protect our aquifer. The only board members I've seen speak up for its strong drought plan are Director Palmer and Director Minley. And I asked myself, why wouldn't the other directors support a common sense drought plan? The answer is pretty obvious. 2 of you have permits with the district, Director Schott and Director Robinson. Robinson, you changed your permit from agricultural to industrial use as, quote, part of a manufactured product in 2017. That sure sounds like making money off the water. And Director Schott, you have irrigation wells that pump significant amounts of water every summer for your farm. And don't you dare tell me I'm anti-agriculture because my family ranches. And you're putting our livelihood at risk by draining this aquifer faster than it can replete itself. Blake Ward, according to your website, you're a commercial land developer, and it would sure be convenient if you were able to supply endless water to new projects around here. And Mott Bland, I have no idea why you haven't taken action to protect your own interests as someone who lives and works on the fort. You were elected to represent the city, and I haven't heard you speak a single word in the past 13 years you've been on the board in support of the people for Brackett. Please prove me wrong tonight. Please make the right choice tonight.
Miss
Vote option
Brown,
2, or we
you
will vote
have
you out as soon as we get the
exceeded your
chance.
limit. Please
Thank
have a seat. That'll be enough. That will be enough in the audience. I don't need your applause, and none of us do. Thank you. Constance Kilgore.
Hello, I'm Constance Gilmore, right over here.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi. I'd like to first state that my family irrigates in Pecos County. That's my dirty little secret. I've never told anybody. Been doing it since the late 70s, 1970s, that is. And we grow alfalfa. And the people we sell to and always have are the horse farms in Kentucky. And boy, it's been a great ride. I tell you, it's been wonderful. But I still believe pumping should have its limits. I think it is also worth noting, I want to speak about Vince Claus has a background in supporting some of the biggest pro-pumping battles in Texas that exist right now. He is a paid consultant supporting Clayton Williams' family, and that's Pecos County again, and to receive large pumping and export permits after the spring, the Comanche Springs, had already gone dry due to overpumping. It should be noted that Comanche Springs feeds from the same aquifer as Los Moras Springs. Vince Claus also works for Kyle Bass of Moras. Now there's somebody else I know, the billionaire currently suing groundwater districts in East Texas who are trying to stop him from pumping and exporting large volumes of water there. Recently, Representative Cody Harris stopped Kyle Bass from taking water from his community near Houston. It appears Vince Claus is a hydrologist of choice for large water pumpers and exporters. He was handpicked by pro-pumping water board members without any interview and has no doubt been given clear guidance on what his scientific methods could lead to. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Andrew Austin.
How's it going? My name is Andrew Austin. I'm an avid outdoorsman, a biologist. I got my degree at Texas A&M as well. I'm a member of the Lipon Apache community here in Bracketville. Tragedy of the commons, when individuals act selfishly for short-term gain, depleting natural resources and harming the entire community that relies on them. This was a central theme during my time studying wildlife and fisheries sciences at Texas A&M University. If you know anything about Texas history as it relates to land and wildlife, As you know, how tragedy of the commons has resulted in so much loss here already. Our great state is far less beautiful than it used to be. We've lost a lot of grasslands. We've already lost springs. Many species have been extirpated, and it's all been due to greed and lack of foresight for the future. When you see natural resources purely through an economic lens, you degrade your connection to your community, your spirituality, and your humanity. The spring here in Kinney County, Los Moras Springs in particular, brings so much life to this community as it has for thousands of years. My Apache ancestors wouldn't have lived here without it. Settlers wouldn't have came here without it. So let's really honor our collective history here, the land, the water, the creation. Let's prioritize spring health. Let's keep our current DFC so your kids and grandkids can enjoy this beautiful place far into the future. Thank you.
Not helping you any. And has anyone found Dawn ready yet? She signed up to speak. She wasn't here a minute ago.
I'll take their place.
No, if you want to speak, you can sign up. If no one else wishes to speak, we're going to close public comment. All right, moving on. Agenda item number 5, discussion possible action, direction to the district hydrologist on options for addressing desired future conditions, model available groundwater before Groundwater Management Area 7. You have some updated information you need to give us?
Got a lot to digest right now.
Well, who wants to walk point? Anybody want to talk first?
I've got a question. Is the lawyer here?
No.
Can you get him on the phone?
He's on.
He's right over there.
He's on the TV.
He's on. Mr. Ellis, can you hear me?
Barely.
You can hear me?
Barely.
For some reason, the microphone seems to drop that. I couldn't barely hear anybody.
You're the lawyer for the groundwater, Kinney County groundwater, right?
General counsel, yes, sir.
Okay. Who do you represent on the board?
I represent the board of directors in its entirety.
The whole board?
Yes, sir.
Why were we not told that Vince Claus was part of the Bass part when you knew this? Why didn't you tell everybody on the board when we discussed voting, having him put him on as our hydrologist? That's a simple question with a simple answer.
At the time that you made that vote, I wasn't aware that he'd worked for Mr. Bass.
You told us the story about 4 times.
I'm sorry?
You told us the story months before that about the Bass deal going on. And you did not mention a word of it when we was going to elect him. We're just common people. We don't know what's going on in this whole world, and you're supposed to know this and represent us as our lawyer. This was not brought up when we voted him to have him be our hydrologist.
What does that have anything to do with?
It has a hell of a lot to do with it.
I'm very curious what that has to do with.
It has a lot to do with it. Because we wouldn't have voted him in there if he's already got lawsuits going all over because of his hydrologist. It seemed like it was hydrologist for hire to get the results you want.
If I could answer the question.
Like to me. That's my
whoa. Just hang on a minute. Please, Mr. Ellis.
If I could answer your question, Mr. Manley, I have not reviewed every filing in Mr. Bass's filing, nor had all of the information been made public as to who had been working for him and what they have done. I still haven't reviewed the work that Mr. Claus has done for Mr. Bass. I do know that Mr. Bass hired multiple hydrogeologists. The rumor is because he didn't like the answers he was getting from the ones that he hired. I don't know what information Mr. Claus gave Mr. Bass, and I don't know what questions he was asked. Part of the problem that you have with any hydrogeologist is you have to be careful what question you ask. You want to make sure you ask the right question to get the right answer that you need. For example, if you ask the question, can I get 50,000 acre feet out of this aquifer? They'll answer that question. And the answer probably, for most of the aquifers across the state, is going to be yes. And the better question is, what's going to happen to all of the other people around here, the other wells around here, if I pump 50,000 acre feet? And I don't believe Mr. Bass has ever asked that question, because Mr. Bass doesn't care about the answer to that question. The question is whether or not this clause is qualified, whether or not this firm is qualified to do the hydrogeology. I think they are qualified to do the hydrogeology. I've worked with his firm before, and I believe that he's able to do a good job for you. And right now, he's asking, the question you have for you tonight is, what exactly is that which of these options do you want me to explore and to write a paper on and present that information to the GMA? And it's up to this board to set that policy and make that decision, to have it, to give him that direction.
Yes, sir. I understand that. But the problem I have is, in my belief, our last hydrologist quit because this board would not take his advisement on this from 7 to 10. And here it is now, the same hydrologist, the different hydrologist is now saying it's supposed to be zeroed out or null and void, whatever you want to call it. And now he's talking about 62 whenever the last hydrologist said it's supposed to be 7 to 10. Now, there's a lot of difference between 62 and 70.
Okay.
There's a lot of difference between 7 to 10 than it is to 70.
All right.
Why is it so hard to get this
Director,
correct?
you've had the floor. Now I want it.
Well, I'm not done yet.
Well, you are,
I
as
have
far
the
as
floor
I'm
until I'm
concerned.
done.
No,
Whether you're
that's not the way
president
it
or not.
works. No, it's not the way it works, because
Really,
you're misrepresenting several things. Number
No, I'm
one,
asking questions. I want you to
he
answer.
offered us two different options
he offered
that he can.
three.
No, he didn't. He offered us two options that he believes that he can defend in court because of what the DFC is and what the metric is.
Okay.
The third option was brought up by Mr. Burton,
Okay. Well,
which
I
was
wasn't done on
if
my-
it stayed the
on
same,
my question.
not him. Okay.
He's supposed to be the hydrologist.
He didn't tell us you need to do this or you need to do that. He said we can do either one of these things. And the thing that's the elephant in the room that nobody keeps addressing, except I believe Miss Orwick brought it up, is we have a Edward Spring in the Edwards Trinity GMA. I brought it up over a year ago in an open meeting, and nobody can explain to me how that happened.
Okay. We're talking about setting a DFC. It's not important to set one?
No, it's important to have the DFC in the right GMA.
Okay.
I don't have a problem having Lost More Springs as DFC. I don't have a problem with having Springs as DFC.
Okay.
Okay, because
sets the
everybody
DFC?
tells me that that's a good indicator of what's going on with the aquifer. I don't have a problem with that. The problem that we have is we have an Edwards aquifer spring. It's been recognized in academia for 80 years. And yet we have that DFC in the Edwards Trinity GMA.
Okay.
That makes it very difficult.
I'm trying to make here. Who
Well,
makes
how are
the
you going to
decision?
defend that?
Who makes the decision on the DFC? I talked to the GMA 10 today. They said they don't make any decisions on that. He said the board does. You've been making decisions on what the numbers are been going in yourself.
The board sets the DFC.
We haven't ever discussed that in the whole year I've been in here. We've never
It's
discussed.
because it's in your management
the
plan, sir.
We've never discussed them in the meeting at all.
It's
Never.
a 5-year cycle. You're stuck
5
with what the
years.
other
I've
board
been here for a
did.
year and I've not heard a word of it. Seems to me that you're setting them on what you want to do
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you're in the GMA 7 and they're in the conferences. How's that? Put the
I just tell them what
spots
to
in the
do.
chicken house to go guard.
Yeah. I just tell everybody what to do.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm just asking a question here. How's that? It's all simple.
Well, the simple thing is what's before us. What we need to decide,
if we
what we're
can't
going to
decide on
recommend and tell him to do.
Who sets the
Let's
DFC?
let Vince talk. Can we do that?
By all means,
Don't mind if I first clear the air on a few points?
please.
Had these prepared.
statements I was going to make, I'm probably going to say very little from those. And that's because a lot has developed today. Where do I start? Who am I? Why am I here? We'll start there. I was a kid growing up in high school that would show up to the gym early to take showers. I grew up without running water. Sometimes water would flood through our pipes. It was brown. It was muddy. Why I'm here today is because I don't ever want that to happen for another kid here in Texas. It's disheartening as a young child for me. It was something that I had to work through. I had coaches saying, "Oh, glad you're in here this morning." They thought I was working out. I was just taking a shower so I didn't stink before that day's school. That's what motivates me. Why I'm here. When Kinney County first announced it was looking for a hydrogeologist, I thought, no way. That's a headache. Why would I ever want to touch that with a 10-foot pole? I'm being honest right now. What happened was I sat for about a month and thought about how important this conversation is to this community and saw an opportunity to do something very important and impactful for an area that has been struggling with the groundwater challenge as it relates to how we're managing this resource for quite some time. Early on, I thought, no way. But the more I thought about it, I said, you know what? There's a chance to do something really special out here. That's why I applied to be the district's hydrogeologist, for no other reason. What I've done throughout my career. I've worked for over a dozen different GCDs across Texas. You heard a comment about Pecos County earlier. I've worked for the Middle Pecos Groundwater Conservation District for 10 years now. I'm part of the team responsible for developing the materials that were used to fight Clayton Williams in that lawsuit. I don't know what the discussion was about me working for Clayton Williams. Never worked for him, never been on his property. I have successfully worked for that district, and more recently have worked for that district to help them advance their understanding of Diamond Y Springs and then the flow paths that are relating to flow at that system. More recently, we've developed materials to support removing a state-mandated brackish groundwater production zone from the Rustler Aquifer to protect that spring. I was also part of the team out at the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District that helped them develop their first ever management zone. Lost Pines, they were in the news all the time. They had the Vista Ridge pipeline next door. They had a community that was up in arms over the impacts that that community was seeing. I was hired by Lost Pines. I helped them revisit the geology, the hydrogeology. We updated their conceptual model for how aquifers are situated within that county. That supported the foundation for their first management zone. I've also helped develop management zones in several other GCDs, including the Clearwater Underground Conservation District, where the work that I did there was part of the first three-dimensional model developed in state as a tool to better manage groundwater resources. I've been doing this for a long time working for groundwater districts. One of the things I'm most proud of is being a hydrogeologist is doing work in Bell County, where I was evaluating wells. And I said, something doesn't look right here. These wells are too deep. Started doing some research and realized those wells were completed in a very, very old rock type. That rock type is high in arsenic. Called the general manager for the Groundwater Conservation District, and I said, hey, I think we have a problem here. We've got a water well driller that's drilling wells too deep, and he's completing these in an old Paleozoic formation that could have arsenic in it. That general manager drives out to that property. A woman comes running out, 6 months pregnant, another kid on her hip, another kid running out with her. He says, ma'am, I'm here because we're concerned with your water. She tried to shoo him off the property. She said, ma'am, we believe you may have a problem with your water well. We do testing on that well. There's arsenic in the water. So, all this talk about billionaires, private equity, I've worked for GCDs throughout my entire career. Why would billionaires want to hire me? Because I'm good at what I do. Conservation Equity Management, Kyle Bass property. I've worked for them. The reports are online. Anyone could go look at the reports I wrote. I encourage you to. I encourage you to go look at my recommendations in those reports. I recommend a conservative approach to the development of these groundwater resources until there's more testing in place, until we better understand this aquifer. Only there could we ever think about expanding this into a groundwater project. That's who I am. That's what I've done. Worked for Texas Water Development Board, worked elsewhere across the state, but those are some of the things I'm most proud of. All right. The report that we provided to the board last month, I just want to provide a quick refresher on this. We're operating under a DFC that we're trying to fit a mag adjustment to. In our report, nowhere do I say that pumping doesn't impact spring flow. Instead, we just say that pumping is more correlated, and that's how we support one option here. As Wes said, I have to be able to defend both options. I never said pumping is not important to spring flow. I just said precipitation is more strongly correlated. Everything we did was to align with the existing DFC. Do I think it's right? It aligns with the existing DFC. That's what we were tasked to do. Develop an approach to revise the MAG. To do that, we had to align with the existing DFC.
Because your job is not to tell us what to do.
The existing DFC is based on an annual spring flow average that is somehow been reworked to a December 31st end of year flow. Our methodology aligns to that. Has nothing to do with what the data is showing us on a daily measurement scale or a monthly measurement scale. It's about aligning to the existing DFC because that's the MAG that we're trying to revise. Do I think pumping is important to spring flow? Yes, of course. That's a given. We were tasked with developing an approach that we could defend that led to a revised lower MAG. What we did along the way here was we realized, wow, this DFC that everyone's been complaining about, there's an option that allows us to both remove that DFC and also reduce the MAG. That's all option one was ever about, moving us away from a bad DFC and reducing the MAG. All right. Let's see if there's anything else in here I want to cover. You know what? I'm going to go through this. What the current DFC actually is. As adopted in 2021, total net drawdown in Kinney County in 2070, as compared with 2010 aquifer levels, shall be consistent with maintenance of an annual average flow of 23.9 CFS and an annual medium flow of 23.9 CFS at Los Moras Springs. A mouthful. The adopted desired future condition is a drawdown-based target that is intended to be consistent with maintaining an annual average 23.9 CFS and a medium flow of 24.4 CFS. Here's the key piece of all this, based on scenario 3 of the Texas Water Development Board flow model. It also talks about a drawdown target. A drawdown target that meets the desired future condition has not been explicitly defined. This is the originally adopted DFC, or desired future condition by Kinney County, is the desired future condition reflected in the district's management plan, and to my knowledge has not been formally revised by TWDB through the joint planning process over the last 20 years. Importantly, the desired future condition target is derived from a flawed groundwater model prepared with 77,000 acre-feet of groundwater pumping, and as Dr. Robert Mesa stated, might have a hole large enough to drive a water truck through it. That's all option one was ever about, moving away from that bad DFC.
I have a question. In the last meeting, was that 23.9? Once we factor in the other 9 years since that was been set, was that not lower than what we actually have it in the plan?
So from 19,
did I not hear that right?
No, you are correct. From 1900 to 2025, daily mean spring flow is 18 CFS. So the entire period of record, historic spring flow is 18 CFS. Now, if we just look at that 2009 to 2015 period, the 2011 drought, daily mean spring flow is 7 CFS. When we look at this recent drought period with increased pumping, spring flow is at 9 CFS. All we've done so far is we followed the data, nothing more. We're following what the data is telling us because I have to be able to use data to defend whatever option that we come up with at the end of the day here. Timing, what it takes to revise the desired future condition this planning cycle. Timelines matter, and we are in the late stages of this joint planning cycle. Statutory deadline to submit proposed DFCs to Texas Water Development Board is May 1st, 2026. That may sound like we have 4 months, but reasonably we have about 7 weeks from today to figure this thing out.
Vince,
Yes, sir.
still didn't get my answer to my question. Who sets the DFC?
GMA 7 sets the
GMA
DFC.
7 is
Through
he's on the board and Janelle Hobbs on the board.
GMA
This
7
is all
sets the
one big
DFC.
problem.
It receives input from this district.
Okay, and this district sets. GMA 7 and GMA 10 told me they do not vote on that kind of stuff.
They don't set,
It is up
they
to
don't
the
set
board
the
to vote on.
DFC. They send up a MAG recommendation. This board sets their own DFC in their management plan.
Okay,
Mr.
so you-
Ellis, am I incorrect about this?
So you
Just hang
you
on.
set the MAG.
No.
No, we.
No.
I've never heard anything about the MAG all year. This is what I'm talking about. We had 5 years to do this, and you come up to the last bit.
Have we taken any vote on a management plan, Director?
You're not following the management plan anyway.
Have we taken any vote on a management plan since you've been elected?
No,
That's why you hadn't talked about it.
you're not following the management plan anyway.
To answer your question, it's a formality here. The GMA sets the DFC, but that really is the board providing its guidance on what it's going to set it as.
So he can determine what he wants to put on there.
No,
He never put anybody.
we determine. We.
And
Yeah.
as we discussed at the last board meeting, when you go to revise the DFC, there's 9 factors that you have to consider. We have to develop an explanatory report and consider 9 factors along the way. What are those aquifer uses and conditions within the management area? What are state water plan needs and strategies? What are hydrologic conditions? Those first 2 are easy. Now we're starting to get into things that are a little bit more difficult.
Well, whenever the aquifer itself is in a number 5 drought situation, the aquifer itself, not the ground, the aquifer is in a stage 5 drought. How is that not factor into what we're talking about?
Vince, Barry, can I step in there a second?
Yeah.
Vince, real quick. So just to explain the process, and I think the public, and correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, if you can hear me, Vince, you know how the process works too, but just from my perspective, how it works, Barry, is the board, with the aid of their consultant and any information they might gain from wherever, decides what they want the future to look like for their area of responsibility. So in the future, right now, the board had decided that they want 24 annual average cubic feet per second. And then the management plan goes on to explain how that would be implemented, et cetera. But the board votes, and that's what Wes is trying to say. The board votes to choose what the DFC that they're going to recommend to GMA 7 in this case, or to GMA 10, because there's a separate DFC. Okay, and anyway. So that's what we need to do. And that's what we're going to talk about, if there's time to do it or not, and maybe there is, maybe there isn't.
Quick thing in there, House Bill 2078 that requires us to support that DFC with a management plan, show how we're going to do it.
Yeah, sure. And
got the
you know,
method.
and I got to ask you about that later too, Vince. The new House Bill 2078 has some new provisions that might allow intermediate DFC amendments mid-cycle, I think. And so that's a new law that just took effect. But anyway, besides the point, Perry, trying to answer your questions, the board votes on what the future should look like, the DFC, desired future condition. Then the GMA 7 members vote to forward that to the Texas Water Development Board, and there's tech memos and there's supporting documents, which is where the work comes in and the time issues, and the public hearings and stuff. And then the state goes, okay, you can have those DFCs, and we're going to figure out what the MAG would be that would allow that DFC to happen in theory with models. Okay, the problem is, in my mind, and not to get off track, is the state models aren't super thorough, and the ones that have been used in the past aren't awesome.
They're flawed.
They're flawed. And Vince would have to weigh in on that, but they're working on the models, and we paid for a model, and maybe we can get our model and blah, blah, blah. But the state, after the DFCs are established, works with the GMAs and Vince or the consultants to figure out what the MAG will be to make it look like that in the future. And then we got to have a management plan to implement that whole deal. So that's how the thing fits together, and it's on this cycle. And right now the cycle, correct me if I'm wrong, Vince, we're on this DFC/non-relevancy cycle. So our options now, and they're going to go over the options. One of them is declare non-relevancy, and that has some significant issues with it. So we're going to weigh in on that. But you could also possibly figure out a different mag, or not. Sorry, that's a mistake. A different DFC, and we could vote on that. Or, and this came up, Wes, I think you mentioned this. We could basically not choose option one and not choose a traditional option two. The two options, and I don't know that would hurt your feelings. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, but we could vote both of those down. No to option one, no to option two. Send Vince back to the drawing board, and we might have option 3 and 4, which he could get to. So that's possible, right? So that's kind of how it goes.
Maybe you can explain to me. When the aquifer is in the stage 5 drought, you can call in, they'll tell you the same thing.
Well, then
we checked on it. But how do you set the DFC so high when we're in a drought? That opens us up for anybody that wants to sell water, pump water to another town.
Well, that's time out. Let me try to explain that. So you set the DFC just based on like history and what you want the future to look like. Then you set the mag. Then if the aquifer's low or whatever, then you have the option to implement some kind of drought strategy. And then that's where that has to happen. But
it hasn't happened in 22 years.
We just got to keep working on it.
Because everybody keeps trying to go around all those other steps that we have to fold in to make it all happen. And we have to have all the pieces to make it happen.
The science has been there. He's going off what Dr. Hutchinson had already.
The DFC process is designed in a way to where all of these factors are part of the conversation. We talk about changing climatic conditions. We also talk about the impacts to private property rights. We talk about socioeconomic implications. What happens if this water is not there? What is that going to do to the agricultural industry? What happens if that water is not there? What is it going to do to Los Moras Conservation Association? I mean, all of these things play out over the course of a 5-year process, typically. We're trying to jam that into 6 or 7 weeks right now. This is a 5-year process.
That's another one of my questions, why we wait to the end of the year when we're on a deadline, when we should have been discussing this along, we could work a plan out.
Pointing the finger is not going to get us there.
I'm not pointing a finger. I just want an answer to a question.
That's what y'all, you're doing all the time is who is responsible? Who is responsible? We're responsible to fix it. Let's fix it.
And my view, revisiting the desired future condition is in the district's best interest. It's important for long-term management in Kinney County. And the thing that's key to all this is public engagement. I mean, that's part of what this process was developed for. This revision should probably include revising the language such that it is clear that the desired future condition is met and root the desired future condition in observed data, not simulated data. Are we prepared to make a recommendation on that single right number today? No, and it's going to take time. Based on historical conditions, a revised target would likely be below 24 CFS. The Kinney County Board may also want to consider establishing management practices with production limits imposed during extreme drought. The good news is we're taking the right steps to move towards all these things. These things take time. Everything this board has hired me to do is taking us in that right direction. All right. I'll skip over one section here and jump to the end here. At the last meeting, we provided 2 recommendations. It was discussed during that meeting that a third option was maybe possible. Well, today, I've uncovered a 4th option now. One of the things Director Palmer asked me to do was to pull a rabbit out of the hat and find a way to revise the DFC. We've done that now. We'll go over that here in a few minutes. To reiterate, the options we presented were to satisfy the existing desired future condition. Nothing more. All of this, we're anti-pumping, we're doing this, we're doing that. The options were specifically designed to satisfy that condition. One option moved us away from the bad DFC, made the MAG go away. The other option kept the bad DFC and made the MAG come down to 6,200. I have to issue a correction. We've continued to look at this. That 6,200 number is actually going to be somewhere between 53 and 55. We had some pumping in our initial calculations that was in GMA 10. This is the issue we've been talking about, how we've got a political man or a man-made boundary that cuts this county in half. We had some pumping that made it into our initial calculations. So that number is actually somewhere between 53 and 55 as we continue to tinker with the decimal points.
A little lower.
Yeah. So, but, between 55 and 6,200, really, we're not talking a big difference. What we've done is we brought us down from 70,000 acre feet. That was the goal. We've accomplished that goal.
I've got a question. How did the same signs that you're looking at say 6 to 10 and you're saying 53? This is the question I'm trying to get answered. How is the same sign telling Mr. Hutchison was 6 to 10 and now you're saying it's 53? There's a lot of difference in acre feet there. A lot. How is it different with the same signs? Was he wrong? I thought he was top of the line guy too. I'm trying to get an answer to a question. It's the data, the same data.
It's not the same time period of data. We've developed an approach that we know we can defend. Our approach to bring that number down to 52 is lower than anything Bill ever suggested.
He just suggested 7 to 10. 53 is a long way from 7 to 10. I'm trying to understand how big of a gap is in there on the same science.
So
I say it's not the same science. It's the same science. He had to review what's in the past.
It's probably not the same data set that I know I can defend.
Defend it to who?
To you.
Okay.
To the public.
Not working with me.
To the court. Well, let me step in there too. Vince, what happens, Perry, is our consultant looks at the science and, if it's the same as Dr. Hutchinson's looking at, whatever, and there's a lot of it. And that's part of why I brought all this stuff is there's hundreds of pages of this flow model, this explanatory report, this, guy says this guy says that. Books, right? Books, what Dr. May says, books, what Dr. Green says. So your pile at your office is probably pretty big. But anyway, there's all this stuff that you've got to go through and come up with some recommendations. But the state, and I had this conversation with Jim Burton earlier today, the state, the Texas Water Development Board, is supposed to be doing these models, and this is where this one is from. It's 200 pages or whatever. Edwards Trinity Plateau model, right? That's not adopted yet. But anyway, so the state, after we get this DFC thing as good as we can, in my mind, not to, say what I'm going to vote when we vote, but, I am in opposition to option one. I don't think we should do that. The old DFC has been around for a while. It's better than no DFC. We should revisit the DFC. In my mind, that's valid. We need to look at this DFC, and you're going to confirm that. And I think a lot of people are going to say the DFC needs to be adjusted. That's going to create some pretty big meetings too, but that's the way it is. That's what our job is, to figure it out. So I hope we can do that in the time that we have. And even if we can't, we might be stuck with the old one. But then the state, with our assistance, we tell them 6,200, we tell them 5,500, we tell them 10,000, we tell them whatever. And the state is supposed to tell us what the mag is. The state, with our input, is supposed to use their science, use their people, use their models, use what they know in conjunction with what we tell them from what he knows or what whoever knows. And the state is going to say, this is what your mag is. And then there's a whole bunch of rules. That doesn't limit what permits are. It's just another tool in the box.
The point I'm making is it's been.
That's how it works. So the state is going to go, the state though is going to figure that out.
It's been at 77 all this time.
Well, it's been like 70,000.
Okay, but it's been there. Dr. Hutchins said it's supposed to be 7 to 10.
Those are just
How is it
numbers
that
that they
far
threw out.
off?
He didn't go through a full scientific analysis. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he just kind of.
I'm not sure what he did.
I don't know what he did, but I don't know if he ran a model and said, "Oh, it said 7 to 10," or he just knew what pumping was because Jim Bird knows what pumping is. So those numbers were pretty much in line with what pumping is.
And the pumping has gone up a lot since he's.
Well, those numbers are a little bit, they're not perfect numbers.
I'm just
but
trying to
they're
get it in
discussed.
my head because.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. I'm pretty slow and ignorant, but if I can't understand it, I'm not going to.
That's the picture I can give you of it. So.
We have to support the DFC that we're setting The only way that we can do that and get the mag lowered by a recommendation is to use it through that metric, which is putting it down. That's what's putting it down that far. Whatever conversation they had 3 or 4 years ago about the mag, we'd have to go back and look in the technical memos if he wrote anything about it to see what Bill said about it being 6 or 10. But I suspect that might have been because we didn't have 2 record droughts in the last 20 years when he was probably talking about that 10 years ago. I don't know.
And
That's just a guess.
The pumping has increased probably what, 50, 75% since
Uh,
2019?
You know, there's a lot of percentage numbers that keep getting thrown around with what pumping that has been increased that are completely incorrect. There's a lot of information that's been thrown out that the pumping numbers got changed,
Well, I don't know about that.
and that's incorrect. And I'm not gonna address any of that. It's all balderdash. You can make up anything you want. I'm not gonna
But
defend
short
against
term,
it.
to keep us on track is there's this deadline. The state has rules that I submit we are best served by being a part of this joint planning process.
Right.
So to me, we need to participate. So
we don't.
So
cease to
one option is non-relevancy, but I would submit we should not choose that option, and we should continue to participate in the joint planning process. If we do that, then these timelines are a factor, and we need to work with Vince to meet these deadlines, and through him, and we'd vote, and we say, hey, we want to tell the state this is what we want, and then that's how it goes. And
A determination of non-relevance for joint planning purposes does not kick us out of GMA 7.
Doesn't kick us out, but it changes the game in a way that
Not really. We're still a part of GMA 7. We're still set on there, and we still vote on it just like we always did. It is not. That is a falsehood. To say that puts us out of the planning, that is false. It makes us ineligible for state funding for water plant here. Yes, it does.
Anyway, there's issues. So we'll go through, you can say your opinions on option one. I'm opposed to it, but go ahead.
I didn't say anything about option one. I just say that's not right.
I know.
Okay,
It's
well,
incorrect.
I want to make 3 more points here. Earlier is, I made the comment, we have more than enough data. We do. We've got too much data now. For my team to process just the pumping data, that was 6 weeks of work for us to get to where we are on this right here. We are blessed with the amount of data we have. Now we have to make sense of it all. We have the data. You've hired my team to develop an updated conceptual model. We started that work at the start of this year. We have a deliverable that's due sometime later this year. We're going to use the work that Dr. Ron Green's done over the years. We're going to use the work that Bill's done. We're going to use the work that Bennett and Sayer have done. We're going to take all of that information, synthesize those materials. We're going to bring in all the new water level data. We're updating the stratigraphy. We've supplemented the stratigraphy work that I did back in 2022 with additional data points now. We're rebuilding something that we know we can use to answer all these questions. It's going to take some time. There is a lot of data out there, as you see from these binders and books on David's desk here. We're working in that direction. Everything that you're saying, we're working in that direction. These things don't happen overnight. If we rush them, we're going to get called out for mistakes that we make along the way. Regarding the 2 options, I don't have a preferred outcome in which option the board chooses. My team's goal is to provide options that are transparent and defensible. And this is all based on the information available today and the desired future condition. That's what we had to work with here. With that said, there's one comment that Greg made at the last meeting that does give me a little bit of pause in retrospect. And that is that if we go with non-relevant for joint planning purposes, it does weaken the district's ability to protect spring flow. I was looking at it purely through the lens of groundwater. Greg's comment is something that does give me a little bit of pause now as it relates to option 1. I still think option 1 and option 2 are good options. But now here's all the conversations I've had today. We've uncovered what option 3 is and what option 4 is. Option 1, I'll go over that again. Non-relevant for joint planning purposes. That was simply because of all the conversations that I've heard here over the last year and a half of meetings I've watched online about a bad DFC and reducing the mag. Nothing more. It accomplishes both of those. Justification for it, obviously, in our report, we weren't clear enough in terms of what we were trying to justify, but we talked about Valverde. I know you didn't like that example. Uvalde right now is also considering non-relevant for the Edwards Trinity Plateau. So you've got your neighbors to the west, neighbors to the east. It's not that crazy of an idea. We talk about the amount of water that's pumped out of Kinney County and how could this significant amount of water be considered non-relevant for joint planning. Tom Green County, 50,000 acre feet of pumping comes out of the Edwards Trinity equivalent up there, the Lipan Kickapoo Aquifer. They're non-relevant for joint planning purposes. Their justification in the state water plan is, or the DFC explanatory report is, we manage groundwaters the way we see fit, and we're not part of anyone's regional water plans. There's more than enough justification to go with option one. I vetted it before the last meeting to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Reached out to numerous folks across the state that I know that are very well respected. All told me the same thing. Sounds like a great idea. After the last meeting, thought, maybe I missed something. Let me call a few other folks. Same thing. Yes, it's a loophole, but it was a workable loophole that this district could have used to do away with a bad DFC and a bad MAG at the same time. Obviously, it's not something that's very well liked, but as a district's hydrogeologist, I followed the data and I provided an option that I think accomplishes the goals which we were tasked with working towards achieving. Option two.
The key word, it's an option,
It's
not a
an
recommendation.
I put it in a recommendation section for options to consider. My mistake. And next time I'll say, here are our options.
Options, yeah.
Now, option two. We developed an approach that aligns with the existing DFC because we were under the impression that it's too late in this cycle to change the DFC. Everything I had heard up until this point in time was we had a February 18th deadline. We've been making phone calls. David asked, are you sure there's no other way? I called Texas Water Development Board. I called Bill Hutchison. Bill Hutchison called a few people. The GMA will now give us till April to decide what we want to do. That's new. That just happened. That wasn't an option at the last board meeting.
And that reprioritized the way I've been looking at everything.
So we have a few more weeks to figure things out here. By giving us till April, I've confirmed this with Dr. Hutchison, we have time to revisit the DFC now.
Yes.
That was not an option. But what that's going to require is that we can come to consensus on what that DFC is going to be. Here's what happens if we don't act. If we decide we don't like option one, we don't like option two, and we fail to decide what a new DFC is, the GMA is going to decide for us. They're not going to decide what the DFC is, but they're going to decide what approach they're going to take to calculate the MAG.
Who's going to decide it?
The GMA.
GMA 7?
That's correct. So we can defer all this to GMA 7.
What if he's on the board, like sending the.
I only represent this
It's
district
gonna
at
be-
GMA 7. I can't go up there and do something that y'all don't tell me.
It
You're
will
not
be
behind.
the GMA 7 consultant that makes the end decision here. Dr. Hutchison. So we have 4 options on the table now. Option 1, option 2. We know what those are. Option 3, we try to come up with a new DFC and a new approach for the MAG. The challenge there still is we have 20 years of pumping data. And so as it relates to how differently that MAG's going to change, it's still going to be in that ballpark of 5,300, probably somewhere between 10,000. So that still is a limitation of developing a new DFC with a new MAG since we do not have a groundwater model. Everything we have to do has to be through quantitative methods or tools that we develop and that we believe we can defend as the Texas Water Development Board then goes to assess what we've done, how we've reached our conclusions for what our DFC should be, those 9 factors here, socioeconomic implications, all these other things. And then they have to agree with our recommended approach for how they're going to calculate the MAG. So we don't have a lot of time and there's still a lot of uncertainty in terms of what that outcome looks like. We can get into March here and we still haven't agreed on what the DFC is going to be, and then we're out of time. So there are 4 options. I still think changing the DFC, even with the extended timeline, is nearly impossible. I can offer this board numerous recommendations, but the amount of time it's going to take to really fully synthesize what the implications of these actions are, the wording on the DFC, that's something that shouldn't be rushed.
Yeah, if we decide not to go with option 1 or 2, and we get down to the timeline, can we not just leave it to where it's at? And then come back later and change it to where we want it?
We can leave the DFC where it is, but what will happen is the GMA will then decide how they want to calculate the MAG. And I'm still unclear if they may not decide we're just non-relevant at the end of the day either. I don't think that's an outcome here, but if Uvalde goes non-relevant, if Valverde goes non-relevant, we would fall right in line with that same swap.
I got a question, Ben.
Yes, sir.
The MAG timeline. So the DFC timeline is now April. Good news. I mean, to me, that's good news.
Well, and
so yeah, whatever. It's a little bit later than we thought it was. It's not February. All right, but the MAG timeline is a little bit beyond that. So the DFC is decided, and then the MAG is on a different timeline. So that, let's say we got a new DFC and we did it in time. That's the close one. But if we didn't, the DFC is going to stay the same. But the MAG is a little bit more down the road, and there would be technical memos that would support some kind of new MAG based on the old DFC if we didn't change it, or the new DFC if we do change it. But that timeline is beyond the DFC timeline.
I believe you are correct, because I believe the explanatory report deadline, we would have enough leeway in there to squeeze this in.
But I mean,
before that deadline.
So the state does the DFC or non-relevancy, and then they go to the MAG.
Now
there's some time in there.
Here's the challenge in all this. We have to present this to the GMA. They have to support it. So it's not like we can. The GMA.
But that's the DFC part.
Well, it's
or the non-relevancy part.
I think it's both, and that's what I need to check
but
on.
It's not the MAG part. I don't think. We need to check on it.
It may be the MAG part too, because if they're not going to meet again after that April meeting to discuss any of the technical, we're too late.
No, but I mean, I think.
Well,
I think they're not going to go to the MAG later.
They're not going to let us slip in a MAG calculation without them seeing it first.
No, but that's a whole separate.
I don't know if the DFC is going to meet again to discuss anything technical after April.
Right, but the MAG timeline, we need to look at it because I think it's later.
I see why you think that, but I don't think the GMA is going to accept that. The GMA, they're done.
We need to get
in April. In April, they're done. They do
done with
the whole process. They do meet again. They do have to meet again for public comment. They do have to meet again to accept the final numbers, but I don't think they're going to discuss anything technical after April. I'll have to go revisit that timeline, but I think April is still the hard stop there. I know it seems like we have much longer until that explanatory report's due, but I don't think the GMA is going to allow us to provide something new after the fact. Just like this board wouldn't let me do something after action's already been taken without them knowing what that action is. I just don't think the GMA.
Because how do you figure out what you want to recommend the MAG is if you don't know if they're going to accept your DFC? So even if you did it right, like we're hoping to do right by April, we hope to get what we want. The majority of the board says we want this.
Well,
you don't have to have a MAG associated with that right away.
It's easier everywhere else because they have a model. We don't have a model here, and so we're coming up with something that they've never seen before that hasn't been peer reviewed.
Right.
That's the difference.
Yeah, Doctor.
Why do we not have a model?
Yeah, that's a long story.
I mean, y'all said it's broke, it's got a hole in it big enough to drive a truck through. Why has that not been worked on to revise and fix it where we can have something we can base everything we need on?
The work we're doing right now is to support a new, improved model that is usable during the next round of joint planning.
Okay.
All the questions I got.
Randy? Matt?
So,
Blake? Ben? Somebody got another question besides the three of us?
So, if you can't figure it out, how are they going to figure it out?
The MAG calculation or the DFC?
Any of it.
So the DFC, if we do want to redefine the DFC, which I still think is going to be a challenge,
We have historic
But this
data that we
board-
can use, and that's all we can use. We don't have a model, and we don't have some sort of sophisticated tool or regression model that we trust for that type of analysis. So it's going to be up to this board to make a policy decision on what this board believes that DFC should be.
Well, let's play this out. Let's say that it goes down to the number 4, and they make the DFC. Then how are they going to come back and tell us that we're
They
not
don't-
meeting the DFC?
No. They don't make the DFC map.
No, but they'll set it.
It would stay the same, I think.
We would recommend it.
No, but what I'm saying is if they set it for this district, if they set a DFC for this district, and then we can't meet that DFC that they set.
So they won't set a DFC. They'll set the way, they'll develop their own approach for calculating the MAG.
From the DFC that we set.
From the DFC that we set or
District
currently
set
have.
in its management plan.
But if you can't get to the DFC, they'll keep what we currently.
Well, I mean, to me, we're down to, these are the options. Okay, we can use the current DFC that we have that's been in place for a long, long time that appears to be in the wrong groundwater management area. Okay. We've got some problems with it, and we can tell them to use this metric that's going to put it down around 5,500. Okay. Which is kind of like seems way over the other way from what we had. We look like we're overstated now. Now we're going this other direction with a DFC that I don't think is really supportable in the Edwards Trinity with everything that's been written about it being in Edwards Spring. It needs to be over in 10. But we can do that. Or we can deem it non-relative for 5-year planning period. So it's not a DFC. It can still be a management goal of the district until we get it moved over, which makes all the public mad and all the permittees because they want it to be left alone. So, and then we got the 4th option, which is the Hail Mary, the miracle. We try and get together over the next 6 weeks and come up with a new DFC that's supportable for GMA 7. That's not Lost Moore Springs or some metric with Lost Moore Springs that will actually work. And I don't know how you do that when it's in Edwards Spring and that's Edwards Trinity.
So how would you get it into GMA 10?
Well, I suspect that once we get to the end of this year, for the next 18 months, we're going to have enough data to have a better idea of where the line of separation and demarcation is. We're trying to get a model of 3-dimensional management zones in this district. We know there are places, it's written up in academia now, where the Edwards Trinity overlies the Edwards, where one is underneath the other. We know that. At least the geologists think they know it and think they've known it for 80 years until we prove them wrong. So we need to have that map. It's not a single line on a 2-dimensional deal. It's 3-dimensional where this thing is at. It depends on how deep you are, how far west you are, how far east you are, whether you're in the Edwards or the Edwards Trinity. So until we get that and we have that hard data, we're not going to be able to prove to them to move it over to GMA 10, but that's where it needs to be at. And I don't have any problem with it being there.
We're gonna go there. Sounds like. But Greg,
he may have checked out.
I was muted. Yes, I'm here.
There he is.
Hey, Greg. Glad you're on the Zoom call. It's Dave Palmer. You know, we're trying to, I don't say wrap this up, but I think now it's time for you to weigh in. You know, you weighed in last meeting. Legally, you know, we want to make sure, what do you think legally? Like, where are you at on these options? What's your counsel?
I don't have, you know, I'm not a hydrogeologist, so I don't have a recommendation on which of these options is better in terms of the hydrogeology of the aquifer.
No, just
As
legally.
I said last time we have with the DFC and a relevant aquifer, we have the ability to adopt a management plan's rules to attempt to protect that spring flow. Without the spring flow's DFC, we don't have a lot to hang our hat on. We could still try to find a way to do a management zone around that area that contributes to the spring flow to reduce the pumping in that area. Can do things like that. But we don't have anything that specifically says we're supposed to be protecting spring flow. There's nothing in the statute. There's nothing in our statute that directly regulates Kinney County Groundwater Conservation District. So right now, the only thing that mentions spring flow in Kinney County is the desired future condition. So we have that. Without that, it makes that job more difficult. Now, I have never had discussion with Vince or any other hydrogeologist as to whether or not creating a management zone around the Fort Clark Springs, Las Moras Springs, would be helpful. The Hayes Trinity District, which does not have a spring flood DFC, has successfully declared a Jacobs Well management zone to try and protect the flow coming out of Jacobs Well, which is it says it's a well, but it's badly named. It's a spring. And I can't tell you how well it's working. There's still a drought there as well.
Right.
I know that Jacobs Well has gone dry multiple times over the last few years. But they have, within that zone, they have said there will be no more wells drilled into the Middle Trinity. All new wells must be drilled into the Lower Trinity, hoping that will reduce the impact on Jacobs Well and the springs. And they have set very strict limitations on how much can be pumped within that zone during a drought, as well as other limitations on the rest of the district. They're also right now involved in two very big lawsuits with people who did not meet those limitations. One is in federal court where the district was sued. Another one is in, I think it's in state court where the district sued the permittee for violations of the district rules. When that Jacobs Well management zone was adopted, I was general counsel for that district. I have since left that position and handed over to Deborah Trejo with Kim Smith, primarily because I'm not licensed to practice in federal court and I have no interest in being licensed to practice in federal court. And they had a federal lawsuit that they need to answer. And so I asked her to come and help with that. And over time, because of her location and her involvement in that case, it was just easier for her to become their general counsel. And I'm now special counsel for that district. So there are other options available out there if this is declared irrelevant. And please let me stress this as well. The board makes recommendations to the GMA. The GMA adopts a final desired future condition. And under 36108D4, in parentheses D-4, this district is required to adopt that desired future condition. You have no choice. At that point, the Water Development Board, using whatever model they have available, whatever they consider the best available science, will create the model available groundwater. Now, how you deal with that from that point forward is entirely up to you. You're required within 2 years of receiving the new DFC to make whatever changes you need to make to your management plan. And within a year after that, you're required to adopt whatever rule changes are required to implement that management plan.
After the MAG or after the DFC?
After the DFC.
Greg.
Within 2 years after the DFC is adopted, you have to update your management plan. They're supposed to have the MAG out within a few months after the DFC is adopted.
Okay.
At times they have taken longer. By the way, that does not change your deadline for updating your management plan. If the MAG is late, you adopt a new management plan, and then you have to re-adopt it again later when you get the new MAG.
Right.
It's a new one.
All right. Thank you. Jim, are you out? Jim, are you out there?
What was that statute?
Jim Burton.
Yes, sir.
I did not catch the
yes,
number,
sir.
but I will get it for you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir. I can hear you fine.
All right. Yeah, Jim, we talked earlier today, and this is whatever. You've been on listening to what's going on around here, and I appreciate your presence and your opinion. So just can you weigh in on these options? And, with your experience, you've been at this a long time, Dr. Hudson well.
You know Vince fine, you know all of us, you know, where are you at on this from your data perspective? You know, what do you think?
Well, thank you for the question. Appreciate the opportunity to say something. I mean, there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack. I do not like the idea of making the aquifer non-relevant, and largely just because of where we are in this community. I mean, you heard it tonight. The misunderstanding of what the word non-relevant means. I mean, if we go up into Pecos, we did the Rustler, we did the Capitan Reef. There's, you know, even as Vince said, you know, Vic is looking at non-relevant in Uvalde County, Valverde County already went non-relevant. But even listening tonight, everybody, it's irrelevant, thinking that the term, it means not important. And that's not true at all. I mean, spring flow is extremely important. But the idea of non-relevant, and David, you brought this to my attention. I actually didn't realize that if we went non-relevant, it meant that you didn't have a DFC. And I know that's not the intent. The intent is to protect spring flow. The intent is to have a healthy aquifer. I personally like, and I've told you this before and others, but I like the idea of measuring spring flow and having some type of DFC or maybe management zone around spring flow, because I think spring flow is an indicator of the health of the aquifer. If there's not water in the spring, what's going on? If there is water in the spring, what's going on? It's an indicator of the health of the aquifer. I think it's important. I would concur with Vince. I think if we want to change the DFC in this short time, I think it's going to be challenging. I think it's doable, but I think it's going to be challenging. I was on several of those phone calls today and appreciated GMA7 giving us the additional timeline. But let me talk a little bit about why the DFC might need to change. And I'm not reading out the script here. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. So follow me here for a little bit. But we have been monitoring the spring flow for a long time. And when the spring went dry, there are certain parts of this county where I'm still under artesian conditions. And so we're like, okay, why? So I've got water coming out of the ground. Even I think right now, I don't know if Mr. Well, I don't want to call out anybody's name, but if he's in the audience, I've got artesian conditions right now in certain parts of the county. And so what we began to see over the last several years is that as we hit drought conditions, some areas were experiencing extraordinary drought. Well, there was still water in other parts of the county. And I think someone alluded to this before. I don't know that I'm in a position to be able to say the DFC needs to be in a different GMA, but our strongest statistical correlations with spring flow are for water levels not in GMA 7. And that bothers me. Where my DFC in GMA 10, the Tularosa Road well, and my DFC for GMA 7, those are our strongest correlations, besides obviously mud that is actually right taking water directly out of the spring, or the city that's kind of right in that area. But some of these other ones have lower statistical correlations. And so whatever we do, this is complex. It's not, I appreciate Ms. Marsh comment about how much money is being sent. This is, and I don't know, Vince or Greg or somebody can weigh in there. This is some of the most complex geology in the state of Texas. And so it's going to take some effort, and it's going to take some community engagement and involvement. I appreciate what Mr. Riley said. Mr. Wiley said at the summit meeting. This community needs to come together. We need to figure this out. And the misrepresentations of what people are. I mean, Vince got blasted for even making an idea that an aquifer would be non-relevant. This is a very common thing to do in the state of Texas, and it's not some. It's not us or some board, and the board's trying to do this. The board was just presented options from their their consultant hydrogeologist. And so I think we need to just take a breath. I appreciate Dr. Green being in the room if he's still there. I think some of his work and what he's done, the Kinney County pool, some of that stuff that we've done, incorporating some of that. I appreciate if Ron, you're still in the room. But David, those are my thoughts. I think we can move forward. I think that it's complex what the answers are, but I do think we're in a position to move forward. I would not feel that it's appropriate simply because of the community, not because it's not a technical sound option for the board, but because of this community and where we are right now. I think that I don't know that going non-relevant is going to be the best option. I can tell you this though, when it gets to the GMA made this decide to make it non-relevant because out of the we're pumped out of all the groundwater that was pumped in last year or in 2024 is probably the latest number. We're less than 3 or 4% of the whole thing. So they may just say we're non-relevant just because of for whatever reason, but that's going to be up to them. So unless that's I probably went longer than whatever I was supposed to, but
that's good.
Let me know if you've got specific questions. But as I'm listening to this, these are my thoughts, and this is just top of mind.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Getting low on battery.
I have one more segment to ask somebody else. I got one more input that I personally would like to hear. Travis, you're here from MUD. I don't know if anybody else is here from MUD. Any inputs from MUD? You know, you as the MUD representative. I don't know if you have not to like, hey man, what do you guys think? But you know, I don't know if Felix or Randy has any thoughts on it. If you guys have talked about it, you know.
No, so we have not had a meeting since we've been made aware of what's going on or what's being considered at this point. So we as a board have not spoken about that. And obviously, our job is to make sure that the water comes on when you turn on your faucet. And we have been able to do that through great sacrifice of the citizens of the district. We have a drought plan, and that drought plan has moved through the stages. We actually hit our drought plan stage 4, I believe, last year, which is the highest we've ever gone. When we started that, the first 2 stages are voluntary. Well, when we sat up the next month and looked at those numbers, we hit all of those voluntarily. Didn't have to go around knocking on people's doors, didn't have to find them, didn't have to threaten them. It works. So for us, that's the management style we can use. We're looking for direction from y'all on the permit and where we need to go, but we do appreciate being kept informed because a lot of people forget that we do have a permit. And we do, and our job is different than others. But again, we've been successful at keeping the water flowing, and we're going to continue to do that. And thank y'all for what you're doing.
Well, thanks.
I want to say one other thing, and I talked to Vince a little bit about this, and this is something for you, Travis, is we talk about grant funding. And can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of the great things that Texas Water Development Board does is they offer a variety of different programs for funding to fix infrastructure, to move wells, a variety of things that communities are interested in doing. They have different programs. That's SWIFT, there's EDAP money, there's all sorts of opportunities. Some of those are very low rate loans, some of those are grants. It kind of just depends on what you qualify for, but one of the things that we were talking about is all across Texas, we have the same issue. We have leaky pipes. Leaky pipes is part of the equation here in terms of losing water in a system. Some of those other opportunities, when we talk about the science, the work we're doing, I think we're going to know at the end of the day where we have opportunities to move wells out of certain areas. If we see, hey, wells in these areas are having a very strong impact on the spring, let's work with those landowners to find a solution that allows them to either move into the Austin Chalk, move up to an area that's going to be less impactful to that immediate vicinity of the spring. There's state funding to do things like that. All these things, of course, I said this earlier, they take time, but there are programs out there that the state does offer to help, resolve some of the issues that we may be faced with in the community. Now, we've got folks at Priest and Nichols that do this, that specialize in financing funding. I could be more than happy to have one of those folks come out here and talk about what those opportunities are. I just know some of the basics, but some of those folks are very well versed in kind of what these different buckets of money look like. But there's solutions that are out there, and that's where we're working. It's these things take time. We're going to work towards identifying what those potential solutions could be, and then as a community, hopefully come together and rally behind what we think is in the best interest of the spring, of the groundwater here in Kinney County, in a way that's equitable, in a way that we're treating people fairly. I think at the end of the day, there are some common sense solutions, but it's just going to take a little bit more time to get there.
I think that one of the key deals here is since the city is exempt, we need to start talking to them, just like our permit holders, and try to get them some relief because their infrastructure is needing help, same as everybody else. So I think that's very important. Try to get Janelle when she gets back to try to start conversations with the city. I think that's going to be important for us to do.
I agree.
Several of us that sit on Region J actually go to them every 5 years to talk to the city and the port. So we can keep them into that water plan so they're available. Some of those funds are available that way. That's one of those pots that you can pull out of. It's just one. What's the board's pleasure? What do we want to do?
And before we do that, Wes, could I just
Sure,
clarify
by all
one,
means.
one point here? If the board does not act, the board is deferring its decision to the GMA. So
will.
No action is the GMA is going to take action. They're not going to change the DFC, but they're going to reduce the MAG. They're going to do that one of two ways. They're going to develop an approach very similarly to what I did and come up with a number, we'll just say between 5 and 10,000 acre feet, or they're going to deem us non-relevant. They're not going to let 70,000 acre feet sit. 70,000 acre feet is off the table. That number is going away, whether we want it to or not. If we don't take action and change it, the GMA is going to. That's it.
You entertain a motion?
What do you want to do?
I make a motion that we go for option 4. We get to work on it, change our DFC, and
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Don't worry, you're gonna get a shot at it.
Just to clarify what option 4 is to, and I don't know.
Yeah, we definitely need to clarify that.
You know, I don't know if we can actually, we need to ask Greg about that. Do we need to have another special meeting to prove that or not? But, you know, we could vote to not accept option 1 and we could vote to not accept option 2. And then option 4, I thought was do nothing, but option whatever.
option 3 is do nothing. Option 4
Okay,
is.
that works.
Let's get away from numbers and just say what we're doing.
So I think the option that you're recommending to revisit the DFC is, I'm on board with that. So that's what
So we need to find out if we can do it legally.
So what we're talking about is to try and come up with a new DFC in the next 6 to 7 weeks. If I'm putting this 2 hours down into the sentence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you make the big money.
All right. So I don't have a problem with that option at all. To answer your question, yeah, we're going to have to meet plenty.
Another special meeting, I think, is.
Hey, we're going to be more than one.
I'm ready.
I
Let's
have a
go.
feeling there's going to be more than one.
Let's go.
Yes, ma'am. What's your question?
If you were to select option 2, and which would keep the DFC and reduce the MAG, would you still have the option, even if you took that to the GM7, to go ahead and then revise the DFC?
That's the problem. These are 5-year planning cycles. The regional water planning committees do the same thing as the GMAs do on these 5-year cycles. And we usually can't do that because once we send the DFC up and then they kick the MAG back, the DFC is accepted, then you're in a 5-year planning cycle to go back around again. Although apparently there may be something new that allows us to do that. We don't know the details of it yet.
And I don't know. Yeah,
We're going to find that
I don't know
out.
if we can be answering all these questions.
Well,
But anyway,
we
you
don't
guys
have
decide.
to answer them, but I'm going to.
That's fine.
What's your question?
So
Where are we in GMA 10 on the planning cycle? How do you, if the spring gets moved to GMA 10, then it's relevant.
As far, well, that's the whole problem with trying to get it moved into 10 at the moment. They're on the same planning schedule as everybody else. They're right at the end of it. It's getting it moved over into 10 in this cycle is problematic. That said, I don't mind that as a management goal, and I don't mind it as DFC in the right GMA. That's where it needs to be at, in my opinion, for all the data that we've had and everything that I've seen. And we need a different one for 7. So we can monitor what's going on over there, whether that's a spring or whether that's a water, the Dooley well is a water well level. We have to come up with that. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about trying to come up with another DFC for GMA 7 that works.
We have to come up with 2, 10 and 7?
Well, we're we're gonna have to come up. We're gonna have to.
7 for
Well,
now.
that's the other thing too. We've been
Let's
talking
just
about.
set high.
We've been talking about 7.
Let's just stay there.
We're gonna have to go into 10, but not at this meeting. But yes, we got to fix that too.
We have to do 2.
If we don't do
Within the time
anything in
period.
10, it's gonna
No,
stay the same.
we don't have to do 2 within the time period because the only one that we've got a problem with right now is 7. We are going to have to fix
Because
10
the
as
high
well.
mag, basically.
Option 2 is great with lower demand.
Anyway,
Well, the deal with getting it over in 10 is we also have to defeat the state's line, which means we need our model. We need our 3-dimensional model to do that.
we'll use them all.
That's how we're going to get it moved over there. That's the only way we're going to get it moved over there, as far as I can see. Anyway, so the motion has been made and seconded to instruct Mr. Claus
But our
help us
next approach would be to ask the attorney, though.
Get that.
to
Yeah,
come
we
up
can
with it. Well, we'll clear it by Greg before we vote on this. But
Okay.
I'm just making sure I've got it
Okay.
right. This is just drive through talking.
All right.
I'm reading back the order.
Okay, my
Okay.
understanding of this is if we don't come up with one in a period of time, the GMA 7 will come up with our DFC. Or make it.
No, we're stuck with the one we got, and they're going to come up with our MAC. It's you're following it, but it's just not quite the right acronyms with it.
And we're still working against timelines here to where if at the end of the day we realize we're not going to reach consensus on what that DFC should be revised to, I still have to write a report for option 1 or option 2. So
Right.
we can't burn, all of our time.
We
here.
can explore,
Well,
we
write
can
one
explore
for
this,
each
but we
one,
can always
and
go
when we
back to
vote,
1,
you
2,
can
or
take
3.
it.
But I'll still need a couple
Well,
weeks to
just
finish,
1 or 2 now, but
finish those reports, those write-ups that we have to still provide to the GMA. They were gracious enough to give us more time. But I don't know what that April meeting date is going to be yet. But whatever that April meeting date is, it's our hard stop on all these. So if we waste, the next 2 months trying to decide what a
And
DFC
you're
is,
still
and then we say,
You're still gonna need the month beforehand.
and
to
then we
write it
say,
up.
you know what, we don't like any of this. We're not going to reach consensus. We're going to default back to 2. Well, I still need time because I'm not going to burn budget writing a report that may be useless. I'm going to make sure we're efficient and wise in terms of how we're moving forward here, which means I'm hitting pause on 1 and 2 fully.
Greg, are you there?
Sure.
There, Ben, what was the question about the legality?
Legal, what are the steps we need to take to completely change the DFC? Is that a special meeting to completely rewrite it? Do we put that on the agenda? What are our steps now if this is the steps we want to take?
In other words, I think that, another concise way of putting this, Greg, is if we go down the road of changing the DFC over the next 7 weeks, what do we have to do as a board to make that happen correctly?
You need to get the best available science you have to justify the change that you're requesting from to the GMA in order to present that and make sure that that's presentable to them. What you have to do procedurally is it's not a rule you're adopting. It's not a management plan change you're adopting. So you have to get the report from your hydrogeologist, and you have to schedule a meeting, and you have to post it with 3 days notice, three business days of notice.
And Greg, what about option 1 and option 2? Do we need to vote on those, or would it be best if we vote not to accept those 2 options already and then just direct Vince to start working on the DFC and set up another special meeting?
We
Or what?
already got a motion and a second on the floor to do a different DFC.
I'm never in favor of negative motions to not do something because I don't know what happens if that motion fails. So
Okay, well let's
you've
get
got
a
a
motion on the
motion on
table.
the floor right now, as I understand it. I think you need to take a vote on that motion, and I think if you do that, you've now taken the action that the agenda anticipated, and you're done with that item.
Good. Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor of directing Mr. Claus to come up with another DFC so we can meet and talk about it in the immediate future?
Can you get it in that time frame?
Well, can we agree in that time frame? Because we have to agree before he can get it. So.
Well, but I mean,
But-
that's what I'm saying, but if
Well,
he can do it,
Well, that's between us and him. We got to do something. He got to do something. All those in favor of trying to find a new DFC, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Item number 6, discussion possible action, general manager's evaluation. Ms. Hobbs is still in the hospital. I'm going to motion that we table this until the next agenda.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just lost one, but that won't matter.
I guess he left.
He went to the restroom.
Oh,
He's on his way to the restroom.
that's all right. It's not. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Let the record reflect. Mr. Minley had to step out of the room for a moment. Motion carries 6-0. All right. Director's request for items on next or future agenda items. I think we need to talk about our next meeting. Mr. Claus.
Yes, sir.
We're going to have to come up with an idea.
So what I can do before the next board meeting is prepare a list of options.
All right. You want to do it at the next board meeting?
I think we can do that. Now, it's going to be very
let's talk
vague.
about that.
These are ideas that we can explore.
Right.
And I'll need more direction from the board, explore this one further. Or explore.
This is going to be our first round of discussion, and
I'm not going to
talk about it.
A number. I'm going to come with, here are the different approaches we can take to do this.
How do we do it?
I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to come with any numbers ever again. But what I can do is here's the menu of options. Pick one or two of these you want us to explore further.
When's as soon as you can do that?
At the next board meeting.
Okay, let's do it.
That's going to put us on the 23rd, right? 4th is the second of
27.
4th.
27.
27. In the wrong year here.
Fourth Tuesday, whatever the fourth Tuesday is. That would be the 27th.
There we go.
You don't want a
Wrong
special
month.
meeting sooner?
No.
You're gonna need
There we go.
Pleasure.
27.
I can meet it. I'll need about a week here.
I'm just trying to help you out on the tail end.
I'll need about a week.
I'm just trying to make sure we don't need to meet before the next board meeting in case we need to do another agenda. That's all I'm asking. That's why I'm being inquisitive about it.
I think as soon as you can do it, we can do it. But I don't know, when can you do it?
I can have it by the next board meeting. What I think that will then trigger is probably a series of then follow-up special meetings that are outside the cadence.
That's when we'd be meeting a bunch.
But we can get that in an email before the next board meeting so we
Yes.
can start reviewing it.
Yes. And it's
Had
just
better
going to be,
discussion.
here's the menu of option. Here are the 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different things that we think could work. What would you like for us to explore further as your hydrogeologist?
Director, to bring you up to date, what we're discussing is at the next board meeting, at the end of this month, this will come back and give us a variety of different methodologies to come up with another DFC that we can kick around and decide which ones we want to pursue or go further down. And then after that one, it'll probably start up a series of a couple of extra meetings in February for us to hash it out.
Right. Okay, good.
If that's
Need options.
everybody's down for that. Okay. All right. Anything else that we need to put on future agenda? Now, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Me, of course, I'm on the city council over in Spofford. We have a water report every month on what's being pumped and what's not being pumped. I think we have the technology to do that. I think we should come up with a water report every month. At least bring it up for discussion. You know, all the monitored and permitted wells. That way we know who's pumping what and when. I don't know that, you know, if it's not checked every month closely, then how do we know who's doing what? It's just a security deal for everybody. I don't know, some of these people don't probably want their meter read out in the public. But it just should be a notice that everybody knows what everybody's pumping, where the water's going.
Are you wanting that? Are you wanting that in the form of an agenda item?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I mean, at least discuss it anyway.
But I'm just I'm just being clear that you're not making a general statement of what you want, that you want this on the
I
agenda.
want it to be
Okay,
an item on the agenda where we can discuss.
we will put it on there.
Hey, Director Robinson or President Robinson, this is Jim Burton. Can I weigh in here for a second?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Minley, this is something that is already done. It may not be clear, but this is something that the district already does and puts on the website every month. And Marty can talk to you a little bit more about that. And so when you're asking for this, can you just please clarify exactly what you're looking for? Because there is a monthly graphic, and if we need to do the graphic a little bit differently, we're happy to. But for every well, it's not just the permit, it's actually every well, it shows how much was pumped from each well. And so just look at that graphic, let us know how to change it, and we'd be happy to change it for you.
Well, I can't run a computer, okay? So pulling it up for me is not even an option. I don't even have a cell phone, Mr. Brigden. So if we could have a printout every month, just in our.
I think what he's asking you, Director, is for more clarity on what you want to see so he can provide it to you. I mean,
pumping report from month to month from each permitted well.
Okay, so you want to know what each, so you want to know, whoa, I'm just tying it down. So you want to know the amount that each well pumped for the month.
Yes.
Okay.
And
it should be a report.
It's in your board packet. It's in your board packet. It was in there.
Not a volume deal, the numbers.
There are numbers, and I like I told you before.
Because it's a special meeting, but
It's not in there. It's not in there. Yeah, it's a special
You can
meeting.
get
but it
with
was in
Marty,
your-
Terry, just get with Marty and tell her.
I've addressed it with you, and you have not come into the office. And
I've
the
got
middle
some of
person
them.
is not working.
But I'm talking about a report every month, acre feet, gallons, however you want to do that. Each well that's going out, it should be in our report every month to see who's pumping what and when.
Well, we're going to put this on the agenda item.
That's
We're going
all
to
I
put this on
wanted
the
to discuss
agenda
with you.
so we can hash out exactly what's going to be in that report every month and we can vote on it.
And I
would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. We are adjourned.